What is going on, YouTube universe? Welcome to the Hip and Shoulder, but more importantly, welcome to the round recap, where we pause, we take a beat, and we reflect on the previous round of football. And round 9, hopefully, is a turning point for the 2025 season, because we have had so much shit go down up until this point in time. We have had terrible umpiring, despite the AFL trying to force feed us that the umpiring is in the, the best state it has been in a very long time. We have seen the MRO get things terribly fucking wrong and inconsistent. However, we just witnessed the closest round of football that has been delivered during the entire AFL era. From the culmination of the AFL with all 18 teams in the mix, this has been the closest, hardest hitting round of football that we have seen in a very long time. Ever. Not just long time, just ever. Some people, however, are even touting this round as arguably one of the best home and away rounds that we have seen in recent years. As far as the point differentiation goes, the average deciding margin for this round was 10.33 points. I will put the graphic on screen that Fox Footy have been showing. It shows each and every game broken down and the deciding margin. And apart from Hawthorn doing Hawthorn things to upset the barrel and beating Melbourne by 35, the largest winning margin outside of that was Carlton defeating St Kilda by 15 points. And before that, Collingwood defeating Fremantle by the 14. We had a Sunday round that saw a 2-point win, a 4-point win, and a draw between 17th and 1st on the ladder. This round was huge. We've got a lot to talk about. Let's break it down. It all kicked off at Optus Stadium on Thursday night with Fremantle hosting Collingwood, and I honestly thought Fremantle were primed to win this game. Collingwood went in without Brodie Myercheck, without Jordan De Goey, no Scott Pendlebury. They even decided to leave Braden Maynard back in Melbourne as well. A 5-day turnaround, missing some key components to the, the gears that make the Collingwood machine work, and I honestly thought Fremantle were going to run all over the top of Collingwood. However, only after getting a couple of goals ahead in the first quarter, Collingwood were able to wrestle momentum back, and it was Collingwood's way from there on out. In the first quarter, we saw Fremantle kick, I think, the opening 2 or 3 goals, but Collingwood managed to scrap it back to lead Fremantle 4-3 to 5-2 heading into the first break. At halftime, they led Fremantle 7-5-47 to 9-3, 57, and then after that, the onslaught just continued. Fremantle moved on to 8-8, 56, playing Collingwood's 11-5, 71, and the final deciding margin was 11, 83, defeated by Collingwood's 15-7, 97. It started to become incredibly scrappy in parts, but the main thing is, and we're talking about Fremantle here, and Fremantle statistically, according to the experts, quote unquote, if you want to call them experts, have been saying that they are one of the worst teams when moving the ball defensively, and Collingwood were just able to kind of shut that down. Fremantle found ways to break through the Collingwood wall, but Collingwood just had answers for every single time a forward onslaught happened. And it's just incredible to think that Collingwood, they won their premiership a few years ago, and then they dropped off the beat a little bit, and now they've returned back to their best. And while they might not be on top of the ladder right now, I would still argue Collingwood are the most informed team in the competition currently. They are complete. They have players to come back in, not just the 4 that didn't play, but players like Tom Mitchell, for example, has just returned back through the VFL. He's older, maybe not the Brownlow medalist kind of level that we're expecting from him now with older age, but he's an accumulator, he's a feeder, he gets in and under with those packs and he helps feed the ball out, which will be great for players like Nick Dacos, who, let's not mince words, doesn't love a contested ball. To further push the point of how well Collingwood played in this game, Fremantle still had their big figureheads shooting. They had Andrew Brayshaw, I think, led disposals by the end of the game. Jordan Clark off of half-back was well within the best on ground, and I think both of them might even be, even though they lost by 14, be well within the realm of getting Brownlow votes for this game. Sarong was serviceable. Tracy did Tracy things. You expect so much out of Tracy because he promises so much, but he delivers. Holy shit, the English has been thrown out the window already. He delivers so little when you expect him to return so large. Shea Bolton didn't really get involved as much as you would expect him to. But then on the flip side, Collingwood did this with a hampered Nick Dacos. He came into this game apparently with a hip injury. He was getting heavily tagged. So Fly pulled the trigger, sent him deep forward, and he became an offensive threat. He was taking one-on-one marks. He was making good position. He was feeding the ball off to teammates. And I think Fly has unlocked something here with Nick Dacos. Even if he isn't injured, even if he is fully fit, you can send him forward if he's copping that heavy tag. Take the tag out of the midfield, throw it into defence, and let Nick Dacos run around in that forward 50. Leave him one out. Leave him one-on-one. Do what we used to do at Richmond with Dustin Martin when it comes to Collingwood. Nick Dacos has the ability to be that type of player for Collingwood, and it just adds a string to his bow. And to think they had all those players out, backs against the wall, 5-day break on the road, Nick Dacos, their saviour by many, isn't, playing to the best of his ability because he's injured, he's getting tagged, and they still managed to find a way to not only win, but maintain a lead as soon as they got it. And that just makes me think we are in trouble when it comes to finals when these guys start firing at home at the MCG. It's going to be very hard to slow their momentum once they get rolling. And as I said, I arguably think Collingwood are the best team in the competition right now. As for Fremantle, they continue to do Fremantle things. They have such a good list of players from defense to the forward line. They are so comprehensively built. I don't know about the injury extent to Sean Darcy yet, but he did end the game with ice on what looked like a potential calf or a hamstring. It was on a leg. Don't know how long he'll be out. He's only just come back from injury. But does this now mean Luke Jackson gets free rein in that ruck area again? Because when he does, and when he's a solo ruckman, it changes Fremantle's fortunes exponentially. He is more athletic, he's got more run and carry, he can kick goals, he is a more comprehensively built player than Sean Darcy. And that's not knocking Sean Darcy, because it wasn't that long ago that he was touted as one of the best ruckmen in the competition. It's just he's had a bit of a stay away from the game for a while. Coming back from injury, he hasn't recaptured that form yet. I think Fremantle could very well be in a position where they look at potentially shipping him off and making Luke Jackson their man. But this game only confirmed two things to me. One, Collingwood is scarily fucking good. And two, Fremantle are just going to continue on that roller coaster ride, which is so upsetting as a neutral supporter, because I would love to see them get some success at the top level. Unfortunately, doesn't look like that might be happening this year. Friday night saw action going down under lights at the MCG with St Kilda hosting Carlton. Now, when it came to my footy tipping for this round, I said if this game had been played at Marvel, I would have probably given St Kilda the edge because they seem to be a different beast when playing under the roof. But this was a game for Carlton to absolutely snap up. And early on, St Kilda got a little bit of a jump that I thought, okay, this is going to be very similar to what we've seen, with upsets in recent weeks with St Kilda, where they decide to rock up and they just start piling them on early. However, that faded rather fucking quickly. After St Kilda kicked a few and got ahead, Carlton just put the foot down, and it was Carlton all the way home. St Kilda put on a late press to put pressure on, but Carlton were just steady enough to get the job done, hold up the ball, play very smart football, and it was very calculated by Carlton to ensure they got the 4 points here. At quarter time, they led St Kilda 4 goals straight, 24 to 4-3, 27. I thought, here we go, we've got a cracking game on our hands. Even at halftime, St Kilda 6 goals, 440, trailed behind Carlton's 8 goals, 654. And I thought, it's only a couple of goals. St Kilda are very capable of doing this. They struggled to score. However, that being said, Carlton struggled to score as well, because after half-time, St Kilda only managed to muster 3 goals, 4 for the rest of the game. But collectively, Carlton only managed the 3 goals themselves, but also kicked 5 behind. So it could have very well been a tale of a blowout had they been more accurate. Very low scoring, by standards set by these teams, especially for the second half. When the first half collectively had 14 goals kicked, I thought there was going to be, a bit of an uprising of goals in the second half. But to see from that point on, we only had collectively 6 goals kicked for the rest of the game after seeing 14 kicked in the first half. A bit rough, but I mean, circumstances, the weather might have played into it a little bit, tanks were starting to empty, but as I said, players like Harry Mackay just managing to get a shot late, taking the 30 seconds to take his time, go back and kick the clutch goal from the boundary just to secure the win. Incredibly smart play. And just the way Carlton went about this game collectively was huge. Might be in a little bit of strife though moving forward, because they did see Mitch McGovern go down incredibly early with an injury that actually had him rushed to hospital, I believe, with a sternum injury. And Cowan ended up getting taken off the field with some hamstring tightness during the game as well. So defensively, might be down just a little bit when it comes to output. Now, I don't know what happened with Higgins. Higgins got subbed out of the game and he is listed as illness. Don't know whether he was just feeling crook and he just wasn't up to the task. A very weird call, but it was a 3/4 time substitution that saw him out of the game. So I'm not entirely sure what happened with him there, but very good game of football in the end. 65,000 plus in the stadium, which is huge. Mateus Philippou returned for St Kilda and looked like he didn't miss a beat. But ultimately, Carlton got the chocolates after hunting for some wins for a very long time. They've been, I feel, when we collectively look at the teams at this point in time right now and ask ourselves which teams we're surprised by the most, I think a lot of people would have had Carlton well and truly locked into that top 4 spot by this point in time. My own predictions at the start of the year, I went as far as saying Carlton were going to play in the grand final, they were going to finish top 4, and they were going to win the premiership. Now, from this point in time, that can still happen if all the cards fall in their favour, but they have not been playing the football that we would expect them to be playing. So it's going to be very interesting to see where both of these teams go moving forward. Whether St Kilda can get back and find some momentum to bounce back, or whether Carlton can ride the momentum from this win and get back to where they should be, and that is playing finals in 2025. I alluded to this outcome a little earlier in the video, but Melbourne hosted Hawthorn at the MCG to kick off Saturday afternoon action, and after a contest that was a real arm wrestle for 3 quarters, Hawthorn just decided to put the foot down in the last quarter and take the absolute piss out of Melbourne. When we break down the scores, it's a shock to think that the margin blew out to 35 points, given how competitive Melbourne were for the longest period of time. At quarter time, Hawthorn led Melbourne 2 goals 3-15 to 3-3-21, only the singular goal. At halftime, Melbourne had their chances during the quarter, but absolutely wasted it. 4 goals 10-34, trailed behind 5 goals 5-35. Only the one behind, but they could have and should have been 2, 3, 4 goals up easily. 3/4 time, Melbourne 6-13-49, trailed Hawthorn 7-8-50. Again, that singular point. And then the blowout, and Hawthorn just ran away and they put the foot on the throat and they made sure they went for the kill, with the final scoreline reading 7-14-56, failing to get the job done against Hawthorn's 13-13-91. In that final term, Melbourne only managed the 1-goal-1. Hawthorn put in the foot down to kick 6 goals 5, I believe, if my math serves me correctly. Absolutely huge final term from them, and it was on the back of, again, defensive efforts from the likes of Giath and Sicily and Battle, and the players that have just been really digging deep in that back 50 to set up the run and carry for Hawthorn. Jack Gunston kicks another bag of 3, but the score involvements that he gets involved with every week is absolutely huge. An older player playing his role perfectly and just leading that forward crop so incredibly well. And then James Worpel, take a bow. Easily, I felt, was best on ground in this game and really should be looking at securing a deal at Hawthorn long term moving forward, because I really do think they are the best fit for him. Nothing to really report out of this game at all, apart from the fact that it turned out to be a blowout, which was a little bit upsetting given the rest of the round breaking down. But this just further cements to me how much of a threat Hawthorn can truly be come the back end of the season. Now, probably a big call given Melbourne haven't been playing the best football and are probably not where we expected them to be at this point in time of the year either. But you've got to take the chances that you're given, and Hawthorn have just picked up that momentum that they took after absolutely belting Richmond 2 weeks ago, and they rolled through and made sure they got the job done against Melbourne. And I don't know whether that final quarter onslaught is a better look at Hawthorn and how Hawthorn work collectively, or whether it's a little bit alarming for Melbourne, because we have seen as well, in the past, Melbourne played Richmond a few weeks back, and Richmond managed to get the better hand of them in that final quarter. There's been other games this year where there's been a little bit of a fade off in that last quarter for Melbourne. So, concerning signs for the D's, but if you're a Hawks fan, Hawkball is well and truly alive. Saturday afternoon saw Essendon hosting Sydney at Marvel Stadium. It was a game that I really felt was a coin flip. I personally felt Sydney were better suited regardless of Essendon having, quote-unquote, home ground advantage by playing in Melbourne. But Essendon disproved my theory for 3 quarters of football quite immensely. Looking at the breakdown of the timeline, Essendon led Sydney 3 goals 119 to Sydney's 1 goal 1-7. Early days, Sydney can bounce back, I thought, until we saw the half-time scoreline. And Essendon 9 goals 155 led Sydney's 2-4-16. Sydney only mustering 2 goals and a half of football against Essendon's quite impressive clear shot. They're notorious in the past for missing goals, but 9 goals won. Incredibly clean score sheet from them. For the rest of the game, Essendon only managed to kick 2 goals for. Sydney went on to kick collectively 6 goals 11. They kicked themselves out of a game they should have won. Now, I spoke about the umpiring at the start of the video and said that apart from a couple of isolated incidents over the weekend, the umpiring was actually pretty good. One of the glaring ones, and actually while we're talking about it, I'll talk about one that I just missed about in the Melbourne Hawthorn game, but for this particular game, there was a dangerous tackle paid in Sydney's forward 50. It was probably only a metre or so away from the goal square, so it wasn't far out at all. Ball being contested, Nick Martin from Essendon takes possession, he gets tackled, it's deemed a dangerous tackle. I didn't think it was, a lot of other people agree with me. Killed momentum at that point in time, because had that have been a ball up, it would have allowed Sydney to set up for a potential snap on goal, and they have the perfect players around that contest to be able to create that. A Chad Warner, an Isaac Heaney, those type of players that can rove a contest and get a quick snap. It would have been very interesting to see how the ball would have landed had that been the scenario, but alas, not the way it fell. Referring to Melbourne Hawthorn, I think one of the most glaring non-decisions that has not been paid for years. Cozzy Pickett running into an open goal square, about to pick up a crumbed ball so he can score a goal. Plain as day, Hawthorn defender swings the arm out, grabs him by the boot and trips him. As intentional a trip as you will ever see. Umpire called play on. And it was so hilarious because all the commentary teams, I've seen different commentary teams commenting on this fact, and Jared Waitley went off his fucking nut in the fucking commentaries box. It was an absolute nightmare. But again, collectively this weekend, we were blessed because we didn't have many of these. Up until this point in time, we're 4 games in, we've only had 2 instances that are real howlers. But apart from that, this game, Sydney just turned it on its head after the third quarter. They were 30 points down. It should have been dead in the water. So to think they only fell on the wayside of 8 points in a game where they should have just kicked straight up. Let's have a look at the culprits, actually. Let's break it down. Let's do this live. Looking at the culprits, Chad Warner, it's gonna fucking just blow out my theory of they're great crumbing forwards. They can kick goals. Because Chad Warner, he only kicked 2 behinds for the game. Isaac Heaney only kicked 2. Aaron Francis kicked 2. Matt Roberts kicked 1, but that's okay. He's a backman, not expected to kick goals. Hayden McLean kicked 1 behind. Justin McInerney kicked 1 behind. Will Hayward kicked 2 goals, 1. There was some goals that went big, and especially when the likes of Chad Warner and Isaac Heaney, who normally know how to find the goals, kicked 4 behinds between them, and they only needed 2 of those to go through in order to win. But that's all in hindsight. You know, hindsight is a bitch. At the end of the day, an inaccurate Sydney fell short against a very accurate and up-and-coming Essendon side. Saturday night, Gold Coast hosted the Bulldogs up at TIO Stadium in Darwin. You know, remember? Willie Rioli threatened Bailey Dale and said, hey, I've got mates that live up in the fucking Northern Territory. They'll come and find you. But that must have scared Bailey Dale a little bit, because even though he played a good game, the Bulldogs failed to get over the line against the Gold Coast. And even though Gold Coast, as I said in my tipping video, they're probably better suited for, you know, acclimatization to that kind of weather system up there, the heat, I honestly thought the brand of football that the Bulldogs have been playing was going to be too much for the Gold Coast to come up against, especially coming off of the back of a 90-point thrashing against Port Adelaide in Ballarat. With that being said, a 10-point differentiation between the two isn't bad, considering at one point they were looking like they were going to get absolutely belted. At quarter time, Gold Coast led them 4 goals 5-29, with the Bulldogs trailing 3 goals 3-21. Half-time, they moved on to 6-8-44, playing the Bulldogs 5-7-37. Anybody's game up until that point in time. Only 7 points. They can muster that. They can bring it back. At three-quarter time, the lead might have been just a little bit insurmountable, with the Gold Coast leading 12-13-85 to 9-9-63. But we have seen the Bulldogs come back and face that adversity before. Gold Coast jumped out to a huge lead in that second portion of that second half, in the final quarter, but managed to only get over the line by 10 points in the end. 15-16-106, playing the Bulldogs 14-12-96. Now, I need to have a look here at the player breakdown, because this is going to be interesting. I've seen a lot of Bulldogs supporters this week absolutely trashing Aaron Naughton, and I want to see... Oh, that's probably why. Aaron Naughton only kicked 1 behind for the whole game. Only took 2 marks for the entire game. He was almost unsighted. That, I think, is the biggest problem for the Bulldogs. They're already dealing with Jamara Ugle-Hagan off-field, all the antics. I personally feel he won't play for the Bulldogs again this year. But they have invested so heavily in Aaron Naughton, and I don't know why, because he hasn't fired on all cylinders yet. He has failed to show what he is truly capable of. Their biggest loss right now is not having Sam Darcy in that forward line, because Sam Darcy is the future of the Bulldogs, and just that knee injury he copped a few weeks back has just put them on the back burner a little bit. Like, okay, they got the job done against Port Adelaide against him, but for longevity, for other teams, Sam Darcy is an absolute headache, and I feel they would have struggled, Gold Coast, to maintain that man around the ground. That being said, a lot of missed opportunities by the Bulldogs as well. Riley West kicked 2 goals 3, Marcus Bontempelli kicked 1 goal 3, Ed Richards kicked 1 goal 2, but it was all Bulldogs standing out when you have a look at the disposals. Tom Liberatore, Ed Richards, Bailey Dale, Marcus Bontempelli, all leading the charge. No surprise yet again, Matt Rowell further down the list when coming to effectiveness, as we have seen over the course of the year. I don't know what's happening with him. He started like a house on fire. I thought he was going to be, you know, within All-Australian contention, but he has dropped off the face of the earth. He's been a shadow of his former self the fucking last couple of weeks, I can tell you that much. But no shame here in losing this for the Doggies. They just reset and they bounce back. I definitely feel they are primed for finals football in 2025. The Gold Coast, however, when you have a look at their run home, it's probably going to be hard to argue that they will miss the top 8. They'd have to have everything go against them at this point in time for that to happen. But the Gold Coast pick up a win on the road and get it done in an emphatic way against a club coming off of a big win the week prior. So this, as a momentum builder, is going to be huge for them moving forward. The final game on Saturday night was down at Adelaide Oval, the showdown. Port Adelaide and Adelaide. As a neutral supporter, this is one game I always look forward to watching, because if, you know, previous years have indicated anything, we were going to be delivered an absolute belter of a game. Given Port Adelaide and how they lost the week prior, and Adelaide obviously doing a number against Carlton, the week prior as well. Coming into this game, two teams in completely different form. One looking for a win, one wanting to continue with that momentum. And it was Adelaide who managed to pick a 5-point win up in the end in what was one of the most, out of all the showdowns I've seen in recent years, this one was absolutely fantastic. This had everything. The tension in the dying moments of the game was palpable. You just wanted, if you were supporting Adelaide, you wanted Adelaide to maintain possession, and then every time Port Adelaide managed to find a free kick or get the ball forward, you were just on the edge of your seat, because all it would have taken was one straight kick to end Adelaide's night. But alas, Adelaide managed to hold on. Looking down at the breakdown of the timeline, at quarter time, Adelaide led 3 goals 4-22 to Port Adelaide's 3-1-19. At half time, it was a tale of 5 points, with Adelaide leaving 7-8-50 to Port Adelaide's 7-3-45. We then had, at 3-quarter time, I was going to say a dead heat draw, but it wasn't. It was a 2-point lead to Adelaide, with 10-8-68 leading Port Adelaide 10-6-66. And then Adelaide just had a little bit of a hot patch in that final term, which saw them win 13-11-89 to Port Adelaide's 12-12-84. This was a game that a lot of people were upset with the winner of the showdown medal. It went to Connor Rozee, and he didn't have a bad game by any means. He was definitely amongst one of the best. You could make an argument for a couple of players. Zach Butters had better numbers in certain areas. James Peatling, I thought, played very well for Adelaide. He had what, 8 less touches, but I mean, the bloke laid 12 tackles and had 5 clearances. He was huge for Adelaide. Riley Thilthorpe played a really big game for Adelaide as well, and a lot of people thought maybe he was deserving of the medal. But the booing, I just remember the Anzac Day that had Collingwood win controversially with all those non-decisions, and then Nathan Buckley standing up and saying, you know, booing a champion, how dare you. I haven't seen boos for a winner of a medal like we saw for Connor Rozee since that Anzac Day moment. It was controversial. It was a talking point, but at the end of the day, Adelaide still, I think, would happily take the 4 points over a showdown medal 100% any day of the week. They are starting to find some continuity in their game. And that's what I said in my last round recap when Adelaide beat Carlton by 10 goals. I said, this is the best that Adelaide can put on. They can beat the best teams in the competition when they find continuity in their game. They have just absolutely belted Carlton, who were a premiership favourite coming into the year, and they've managed to hold tight and firm against a fast-finishing Port Adelaide team, where in the past, they might have allowed Adelaide to get not just the win, but take a few goals ahead of them as well. So, just having the maturity to get that lead, and then when Port Adelaide started firing back, they could slow things down, they could maintain possession, and just have everything fall their way. Adelaide should hold their heads high with this win, and it would probably go down as one of their biggest wins of the year, because let's face it, Adelaide defeating Port Adelaide, they'll be fucking happy as all fuck right now. I think the biggest talking point out of this game, though, apart from the booing and everything else, was what happened prior to this game. And obviously, I spoke about it earlier with the Bulldogs game, how Willie Rioli threatened Bailey Dale with physical violence and, you know, threatening his life. It has come out since, and we touched on it in my last round recap video, where a Geelong player had been threatened similarly, and an Essendon player had been threatened similarly as well, all in the space of 6 months. Now, they held a press conference. I was trying to get into that press conference, like, live to watch it, and I think we were on hold for over an hour easily. I didn't watch it in the end. It was a lot of, we accept Willie has done wrong, but people need to realise all the, the vilification against him and his mindset and everything else. Very wrong to be pulling out the victim card for him when he's the one running around threatening people's livelihoods. Now, I went on a bit of a tangent and said, had that have been anybody threatening his life, that could have been taken as a hate crime, it could have been taken as racism, it would have been acted upon accordingly. They didn't even suspend this guy. Willie Rioli removed himself from the team for this particular game, and the AFL's response was, oh, we were going to give him a week, but he's removed himself anyway, so that's fine. We'll just let him miss this week. No, No, you need to knuckle down, because what you have done is you've just given him a slap on the wrist, and he'll do it again. I can guarantee it. Before the end of the year, he will be in the news again because he has done something that he shouldn't have fucking done. Big call, I'm saying it. If it happens, come back here, because I said it first. Sunday saw the closest finishes to a game back to back to back that I've seen in a very long time. And it started with Richmond hosting West Coast at the MCG. By a lot of retrospects, this is a game that either team came into probably thinking if a game was going to be winnable for us, today is the day to pick up the win. Especially the West Coast Eagles, who have been hunting for a win all year. However, they now sit 0-9 because Richmond picked up their third for the year. This is huge for us. And I'm not discrediting West Coast at all, because West Coast fought hard until the end, and they showed a lot in this game. They showed an incredible improvement to what we have seen over recent weeks. But Richmond winning this and picking up win number 3 just is so vindicating as a Richmond supporter, because we came into this year being told we weren't going to win a game. We were going to lose every game by, 60 plus points. We were going to be staring down the barrel of 100-point losses most other weeks when we play the top sides. But we've picked up a win against Carlton. We've picked up a win against the Gold Coast. We've picked up a win against West Coast. We've been competitive against teams like Brisbane. Oh, vindication. I love it. And at this point in time, we are playing better football, I think, than West Coast and North Melbourne. North Melbourne probably a little bit upset and unfortunately didn't pick up the win this week. But because we are clear of them on the ladder, it's almost coming to a point where will North and West Coast get their next wins from? And if that is the case, Richmond will avoid finishing dead last. And that is just an improvement in itself on last year. We only managed 2 wins last year. And that was still with Liam Baker, with Jack Graham, with Shea Bolton, all those players still in the team. Dan Rioli. We were a basket case last year, and we've already built on top of that. And I think that already shows that Richmond's rebuild is heading in the right direction already. We have picked up the key components that we needed through the draft. Each of them are starting to showcase their abilities. Thomas Sims came in for a debut game. He ran at 100% efficiency. I mean, he only had 8 disposals? Okay, fair enough. But he ran at 100% efficiency. He, as a big man, to be able to lace out players like he was and get other people involved like he did, absolutely huge. And the pack mark he took before kicking his debut goal with kick number 3, beautiful. That being said, West Coast, as I said, put on an incredible performance, and a lot of people are hanging this loss on Tom Gross, or Gross. I apologise if I mispronounce his surname, but he came on very late in the final term as the substitute for the Eagles, got involved in the contest rather quickly, but there were 3 holding the ball decisions against him that I think turned momentum away from West Coast a little bit. None more so than the final play with 30 odd seconds to go. I had my heart in my fucking throat. They get a clearance out of the middle, they're running it through, and I thought, fuck, here we go, he's going to snag it from 50, or he's going to lace out someone like Jamie Cripps in the fucking forward line, and out of nowhere, Tom Brown goes bang and nails him with a fucking tackle to save the game. Holy shit. He will go down in cult history at Richmond now for that tackle. Media personnel are already saying that that is the tackle of the year so far. And as a young kid who was involved in the marking contest only seconds prior that saw West Coast mark the ball, he just on the turnaround just to get that chase down tackle and redeem himself. Tom Brown, take a fucking bow. Seriously, I have replayed that chase down tackle more times than I'd like to admit right now, I can tell you that much. But this game, even though it was 2 teams, bottom barrel, dead last playing third last, not many people expecting a decent game out of it, it turned out to be a really decent contest for what it was worth. 15 lead changes in this game. Richmond got an early lead, but after West Coast were able to manage that lead back and get it within a kicking distance, it really turned into goal after goal after goal after goal, and both teams inaccurate somewhat in front of goal as well. Richmond kicked 15 behinds and West Coast kicked 13, so this could have been a blowout on either end of the table. But as we look at the quarter by quarter breakdown, just to give you a bit of an example of how things went, Richmond led West Coast at quarter time, 3 goals 4-22 to 2 goals 3-15. At halftime, it was a 1 point difference, with Richmond leading 7-7-49 to the West Coast 7-6-48. We then moved to 3-quarter time, where West Coast had managed to wrestle back a little bit of momentum, but it was still Richmond 10-9-69, leading West Coast 9-11-65. And then the final term saw Richmond only managed to kick one, but we ended up kicking 1 goal 6, and West Coast managed to pile on 2 goals 2. Could have been a bigger blowout by Richmond given our inaccuracy in that final term alone. There were a couple of missed opportunities. Tom Lynch had an opportunity to snag one and missed. Very Tom Lynch-like to do so. There were a couple of other people that probably should have snagged goals when they did. But again, just to see a moment like Tom Brown just capture the entire MCG, just absolutely erupt with that tackle, it was a huge moment. And on Mother's Day as well, to see that post-game, little thing, Richmond allowed video footage to be shown of Uze's little post-game team meeting per se, talking about how different people played different roles, and he highlighted that tackle from Tom Brown, and just to see his mum give him a huge cuddle and see just how proud he was, and all the boys getting around him after the game and after the siren had gone, such a huge moment for him. It was incredible. I'll take a win wherever it comes for Richmond. This one was one of our best of the year, I can tell you that. It doesn't matter about the quality of the opposition you play. We might have only been playing West Coast, who haven't won a game yet. But for what it was worth, this game was hard-hitting and had goal after goal. It was great to watch. I absolutely loved it. Down at GMHBA Stadium, GWS decided they were going to snap a 3-game losing streak and defeat Geelong at their home ground. Now, I tipped Geelong comfortably in this, and I say that while my voice breaks as well. Comfortably. I thought Geelong at home could not be beaten, until I realised the running track record of GWS against Geelong at GMHBA. This is either 5 or 6 in a row where they've met Geelong at their home turf and have beaten them. Had I known that, my tipping might have gone a little bit differently. But this was a game that saw an arm wrestle of momentum here and there, but it was never really, truly Geelong definitively holding firm. The game started off with GWS maintaining a decent lead at quarter time, 3 goals 4-22, being led by 5 goals 2-32. We then move on to halftime, which saw Geelong 9-8-62, leading GWS 9-7-61. At halftime, I was set for an absolute belter of a second half, because these two teams are going to leave everything on the line. At 3-quarter time, GWS led Geelong 13-7-85 to 11-12-78. Still anybody's game at that point. Players like Dangerfield and Cameron and those type of players are going to pop up. Bailey Smith as well. And in an affair which saw GWS get momentum, and then Geelong managed to wrangle it back in, and then GWS got out to a gap, and then Geelong wrestled it back. It was GWS in the end by 4 points. 16-9, 105, defeating Geelong 14-17, 101. After half-time, GWS only missed 2 shots on goal. Geelong went and managed to have 9 shots on goal missed in a game that only needed 1 of them to get the win, including Mark Blixavs, who had a shot very late in the game that ended up, I think it hit the post. It might have hit the post. If it didn't, it went through for a definitive behind. But he missed a sitter, and they just cut to Scott in the box, and Scott was pissed. And you could tell Blixavs was going to get one reamed up him in that fucking change rooms at the end. This was huge. The last 2 minutes had everything going the way of Geelong. GWS under pressure. The shot on goal from Blixavs, it set up an opportunity for them to play defensive football. But it was Jesse Hogan who came down to Geelong and kicked 7 fucking goals, who was one of the absolute standouts. When you break down the stats of this game, again, GWS playing, there is no coincidence that players like Tom Green, Lockie Whitfield, Finn Callahan, Lockie Ash, Jesse Hogan are all players being spoken about. Harry Himmelberg had an absolutely great game. Bailey Smith was best on ground for Geelong and very well might be stamping his name as one of the most improved players in the competition, I suppose. I feel he's playing at a different level this year at Geelong than what he did the last time he played at the Bulldogs. I don't know whether it's just a fresh, new arena for him to run around on that has given him a reinvigoration. I don't know whether his hunger was deepened because he missed 12 months of football. But he would be going all right in the Brownlow count, I reckon, as well. I reckon there's been many Geelong games this year where he's polled at least 2 votes. And there's been some where I would argue that he's been worthy of 3. So come Brownlow night, I'd be having a good little look at Bailey Smith as an outside chance. But at the end of the day, I feel the biggest talking point here is how the fuck did GWS rock up to GMHBA and defeat Geelong when we have a look at the breakdown of who they have failed to defeat leading up until this game. I'm going to do it right now. I normally have everything on my computer ready to go for these type of videos, but we're going live. We're going to filter by team. We're going to look at GWS, and we're going to have a look at their last 4 games prior to this win. They lost to Sydney, 73-87. They lost to the Bulldogs, 81-113. They lost to Adelaide, 52-34. They should have beaten Adelaide. They could have quite comfortably beaten the Bulldogs at home, and they should have beaten Sydney. To think that they have come against Geelong on their home deck and they've gone, fuck it, Jesse Hogan's going to kick 7, we're both going to kick over 100 points, but we're going to clutch the win? Fuck off, where did that come from? The final game of the round was played at Ninja Stadium in Hobart, North Melbourne, Brisbane. At halftime, I thought Brisbane had this game in the bag. Because after a 1-goal term from North in the first against Brisbane's 2-3, Brisbane managed to lead at halftime 6-4-40 to North Melbourne's 3-2-20. 20-point lead, I thought that's comfortable enough. They'll come out in the second half. They're going to absolutely smack them. But to my surprise, at three-quarter time, they were still in the hunt. Brisbane's 7-9-51, leading North Melbourne 6-6-42. And then, as we all saw, it ended in the first draw of the 2025 season, with both teams ending on 10-11-71. In a game that, when broken down systematically, North Melbourne should have won this game. All tied up, dying moments of the game within a minute. Jacob Kostanski had the ball. It had a 2-on-1 situation where Zach Bailey was kind of coming towards him. He had a teammate in front of him. Should have drawn in the attention from Bailey to get the easy handball over the top, and then they can set up, even have a shot on goal from 50, because at that point in time, if it had gone through for a point, I don't know whether Brisbane would have had enough time or not to manage to score up the other end. Hindsight, again, it's a bitch. But in the end, he goes for a kick into the forward 50. It gets punched out of bounds, and then moments later in a contest, George Wardlaw has a chance to put it forward. He ends up putting it out on the full, and the siren goes. So they had opportunities late, but still, I think they hold their heads high. This is a team that is currently sitting second last on the ladder, coming up against the reigning premiers, and Brisbane should have done an absolute fucking number on them. And to finish as a draw and to crawl back from 20 points down in a game where Brisbane should have just put their foot on North Melbourne's throats at half-time, all credit to them. North Melbourne have been building. They defeated Melbourne earlier this year, and I made a call saying that that brand of football they played in that game will win them more games of football. They came incredibly close in this game. Again, for Brisbane, very slow starting, just lucky that North Melbourne was slow starting as well, but Brisbane left that door open. They should have closed that door at halftime, and the fact that they left it open allowed for North Melbourne to come back into this game. And we had huge performances from both teams. Do not get me wrong in the slightest. We have, if you have a look at the top 10 performers, let me count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have a even 5-5 split. 5 Lions and 5 Roos, all in the top 10 performers of the game. And it's no surprise the names that pop up here as well. Zorko, Davies Uniacke, Sheasel, McCluggage, Dunkley, Will Ashcroft, Dylan Stevens, Charlie Comben had a very huge game at fullback for North Melbourne. Very underrated player, I feel. Jasper Fletcher played a good game for Brisbane as well. Tristan Cherry was absolutely huge in this game. Great effort from North. But again, this leaves similar questions to the Hawthorn-Melbourne game, where I said that drop-off in the final term, is that more of a reflection of Hawthorn just holding back and then putting the foot down, or is it Melbourne's ineffectiveness of being able to stay in the game for 4 quarters? With this game, is it a reflection on how well North Melbourne played, or is it more of a reflection of how poorly Brisbane played ultimately in that second half? I don't know where it sits, but we got ourselves a draw. Brisbane fans won't be happy. I think North Melbourne fans would be very happy. I don't know. But it ended the way it did. We got our first draw. And draws always leave a sour taste in the mouth, but to see a team like North Melbourne come up against Brisbane on paper should have been smacked. I think they'll take a draw at the end of the day. And with 9 games of football in the book, it is now time to see how the ladder sits after 9 rounds of football. And we have seen movement, but all outside of the top 8. Currently, our top 8 is as follows. Brisbane still 2 points on top, no longer 4 points. I feel this draw could come to haunt them when it comes to figuring out the top 4 at the end of the year. I've just got a sneaky suspicion. But Brisbane still holding firm in first place on 30 points, 2 points ahead of Collingwood, who sit in second, and Hawthorn, who sit in third, both of which are on 28 points, split by the slightest of percentage margins. Gold Coast sit in 4th place, Adelaide sit in 5th place, both on 24 points respectively. The Bulldogs sit in 6th, Geelong sit in 7th, and GWS sit in 8th, all tied on 20 points, as well as Essendon, who have moved up to 9th place on 20 points as well, just outside of the top 8 by percentage. Carlton have moved up to 10th, Fremantle have dropped down to 11th, and St Kilda have dropped down to 12th. Port Adelaide as well, dropping down to 13th. All of which, however, Carlton, Fremantle, St Kilda and Port Adelaide all equally tied on 16 points apiece. We then have Sydney in 14th, we have Melbourne in 15th, and we have Richmond in 16th, all equally tied on 12 points. We then have North Melbourne on 6 points in 17th, and we have the West Coast Eagles still on the bottom of the table, yet to pick up their first win of the 2025 season. Now, with all the business out of the way, we can get into the fun stuff. We dive into the 2025 Hip and Shoulder MVP Award, as well as the Round 9 Team of the Week. If you have seen these videos before, you'll know what this is all about, but if you just happen to be new around here, I'll break it down. The MVP Award works very similarly to the Brownlow 3-2-1 vote system. At the end of the year, there will be a player or players determined as my individual MVP of the year, and I determine that based on my own kind of opinions and judgments made on games. And it's just a little way to create discussion as well, because at the end of the day, my decision making might be completely different to yours, and ultimately it probably will be. So if I get things right, if I get things wrong, it opens up opportunity to talk about it in the comment section down below. The reason I brought in a Team of the Week this year for this, kind of platform is that there are many players that would miss out on a vote for the MVP award, but might have played incredibly well in their position regardless, but just couldn't break in for a vote. And I thought, what better way to continue discussion points than doing a Team of the Week? Again, I could be right, I could be wrong. We can discuss about it in the comments down below. I just love creating discussion, because at the end of the day, when it comes to AFL, I love fucking talking about it. And for anybody who has been following any of the AFL stuff I've done in the past, whether it be on this channel, whether it be over on my gaming channel where I did all my AFL stuff prior. I'm rambling. We got to stop. Let's kick it off with the MVP awards and getting into the votes for round 9, which obviously kicked off with Thursday night football, with Fremantle taking on Collingwood. 1 vote, Andrew Brayshaw. 34 disposals, 9 kicks, 25 handballs, 5 marks, 5 tackles, 6 clearances, 336 metres gained, 1 goal, and 8 score involvements. 2 votes, Jamie Elliott. 14 disposals, 13 kicks, 1 handball, 8 marks, 1 tackle, 1 clearance, 401 metres gained, 6 goals, and 9 score involvements. 3 votes, Jack Crisp. 29 disposals, 16 kicks, 13 handballs, 3 marks, 6 tackles, 7 clearances, 709 metres gained, 2 goals, and 6 score involvements. St Kilda versus Carlton. 1 vote, Harry Mackay. 19 disposals, 13 kicks, 6 handballs, 10 marks, 3 tackles, 4 clearances, 204 metres gained, 3 goals, and 5 score involvements. 2 votes, Nasiah Wanganeen Malira. 30 disposals, 23 kicks, 7 handballs, 8 marks, 1 tackle, 1 clearance, 679 metres gained, and 4 score involvements. 3 votes, Patrick Cripps. 26 disposals, 12 kicks, 14 handballs, 2 marks, 10 tackles, 8 clearances, 327 metres gained, and 4 score involvements. Melbourne versus Hawthorn. 1 vote, Chankuoth Jayath. 25 disposals, 16 kicks, 9 handballs, 9 marks, 3 tackles, 507 metres gained, and 9 score involvements. 2 votes, James Sicily. 24 disposals, 13 kicks, 11 handballs, 10 marks, 2 tackles, 287 metres gained, and 6 score involvements. 3 votes, James Warple. 28 disposals, 8 kicks, 20 handballs, 2 marks, 10 tackles, 6 clearances, 345 metres gained, and 7 score involvements. Essendon versus Sydney. 1 vote, Will Setterfield. 28 disposals, 11 kicks, 17 handballs, 9 marks, 8 tackles, 3 clearances, 191 metres gained, and 4 score involvements. 2 votes, Andrew McGrath. 25 disposals, 18 kicks, 17 handballs, 11 marks, 1 tackle, 2 clearances, 745 metres gained, and 3 score involvements. 3 votes, Nick Martin. 38 disposals, 22 kicks, 16 handballs, 8 marks, 5 tackles, 1 clearance, 586 metres gained, and 4 score involvements. Gold Coast versus Western Bulldogs. 1 vote, Ed Richards. 31 disposals, 19 kicks, 12 handballs, 8 marks, 4 tackles, 1 clearance, 810 metres gained, and 9 score involvements. 2 votes, Noah Anderson. 28 disposals, 12 kicks, 16 handballs, 3 marks, 1 tackle, 7 clearances, 508 metres gained, and 5 score involvements. 3 votes, Tom Liberatore. 35 disposals, 15 kicks, 20 handballs, 6 marks, 10 tackles, 10 clearances, 694 metres gained, and 11 score involvements. Port Adelaide versus Adelaide. 1 vote, James Peatling. 24 disposals, 15 kicks, 9 handballs, 3 marks, 12 tackles, 5 clearances, 427 metres gained, and 5 score involvements. 2 votes, Zach Butters. 33 disposals, 10 kicks, 23 handballs, 2 marks, 3 tackles, 10 clearances, 347 metres gained, and 6 score involvements. 3 votes, Connor Rosey. 32 disposals, 24 kicks, 8 handballs, 4 marks, 5 tackles, 4 clearances, 684 metres gained, 1 goal, and 7 score involvements. Richmond versus West Coast. 1 vote, Tom Brown. 16 disposals, 9 kicks, 7 handballs, 5 marks, 2 tackles, 324 metres gained, 1 goal, 6 score involvements, and one of those 2 tackles was the game winner, so he was definitely getting a vote from me this week. 2 votes, Jack Graham. 20 disposals, 9 kicks, 11 handballs, 2 marks, 13 tackles, 3 clearances, 173 metres gained, and 5 score involvements. 3 votes, Tim Taranto. 28 disposals, 19 kicks, 9 handballs, 3 marks, 4 tackles, 7 clearances, 228 metres gained, 1 goal, and 4 score involvements. Geelong versus GWS. 1 vote, Finn Callaghan. 29 disposals, 12 kicks, 17 handballs, 1 mark, 7 tackles, 4 clearances, 555 metres gained, and 5 score involvements. 2 votes, Bailey Smith. 25 disposals, 20 kicks, 15 handballs, 8 marks, 10 tackles, 4 clearances, 704 metres gained, and 12 score involvements. 3 votes, Jesse Hogan. 22 disposals, 13 kicks, 9 handballs, 9 marks, 2 tackles, 2 clearances, 346 metres gained, 7 goals, and 12 score involvements. North Melbourne versus Brisbane. 1 vote, Cam Rayner. 14 disposals, 12 kicks, 2 handballs, 5 marks, 2 tackles, 410 metres gained, 3 goals, and 7 score involvements. 2 votes, Tristan Cherry. 19 disposals, 10 kicks, 9 handballs, 2 marks, 8 tackles, 36 hitouts, 12 clearances, 326 metres gained, and 7 score involvements. 3 votes, Dane Zorko. 39 disposals, 29 kicks, 10 handballs, 8 marks, 2 tackles, 777 metres gained, and 8 score involvements. With another round of votes in the book, we have had a shift in the top 3 for the MVP award so far for the 2025 season. In 3rd place, collectively on 11 votes apiece, we have Port Adelaide's Connor Rozee and Zach Butters, Geelong's Bailey Smith, and Brisbane's Dane Zorko. In 2nd place, equally on 12 votes apiece, we have Essendon's Zach Merritt, Adelaide's Jordan Dawson, and Fremantle's Andrew Brayshaw. And in 1st place, without receiving a vote this week, but still maintaining that lead, we have Collingwood's Nick Dacos. Now, Team of the Week is interesting because a couple of those votes I've mentioned could have gone different ways. Tom Green could have gotten votes for me from GWS. There were other players that could have gotten votes as well. So I've made sure when the Team of the Week dropped this week, I gave a little bit of vindication to players I might have been a little bit harsh with votes. So here's how the team looks for round 9. Across the back line, we have Andrew McGrath and Dane Zorko in the back pockets with Charlie Comben at full back. Our half-back line sees Connor Rozee and Jordan Clark off the half-back flanks and James Sicily at centre half-back. Across the centre, we have Nick Martin and Bailey Smith on the wings with Tom Liberatore in the centre. Across the half-forward line, we have Jack Crisp and Cam Rayner on the half-forward flanks and Harry Mackay at centre half-forward. The forward pockets are Jamie Elliott and Riley Thilthorpe with Jesse Hogan out of full forward. The ruck this week is Tristan Cherry with Andrew Brayshaw as ruck rover and Tom Green as rover. The interchange has Patrick Cripps, Tim Taranto, Finn Callaghan, and James Warple. The substitute is Tom Brown after that match-winning save of a tackle. And the coach of the week is Alistair Clarkson, who, although didn't win, managing to take a 17th place team and end in a draw against the number 1 seed, defending their premiership win from last year. Absolutely huge. Could not look past him. If there was anyone else that came close, it would have gone to Adam Kingsley from GWS from managing to maintain that win against Geelong's home deck. And that is it for today's video. I do hope you guys enjoyed. Do continue to leave a like on the video if you do. These videos especially take so long for me to put together, so I do appreciate when you turn out to view them. If you want to get on board the community we are building, I would appreciate it a lot if you hit that subscribe button down below as well. And if you've got any ideas for content you would like to see, whether they be you know, tier rankings, whether they be discussion videos, let me know in the comment section down below. I am always open to discussion when it comes to the type of content to make for you guys. But that's it from me, guys. I'm out of here, and as always, I will catch you guys next time.